everybody, welcome to CKAMAs. Tonight's guest, like many of you, didn't originally come from tech, having traveled to various places from the countryside of Korea to the bustling city of Beijing, dabbling in the arts, media, and education among other disciplines. She found a love for education. Having been exposed to a diverse set of disciplines and projects, she's actually been able to master the art of positioning her story to fill the needs of the companies that she wants to work at and prove herself as a valuable member on any team. Through her experiences, her path led her to the tech industry, where she realized the massive amount of opportunity and now encourages all to incorporate tech into their day-to-day to remain relevant. Please turn your cameras on, unmute yourselves, and help me in welcoming Flatiron School's career branding designer, Alice Shin. Welcome, Alice.
Welcome, Alice.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Hi.
Well, yeah, welcome. I'd love to start out with your path starting out and some of the experiences that you had. You experienced so many things, and that kind of led you to being able to craft this compelling narrative and being able to communicate your ability to fill the needs of any company. How did you kind of do that? Like, how did that look?
Right. So I know right now we're going through a very difficult time. And I actually graduated in 2008. And we had a recession back then. And so what happened was my friends were graduating and we weren't able to find jobs. So a lot of people went ahead and continued schooling. Many of my friends got their masters, got other additional degrees because they just couldn't find jobs. At that time, I was just sick of studying, and I wanted to pursue marketing, and I had an internship at a marketing firm, but my parents were kind of against me pursuing marketing because they didn't understand the power of marketing at that time, and digital marketing was still very new. But in any case, for them, it wasn't cool enough. So they kept me from pursuing that field. So I said, okay, fine. I'll try to pursue law, but I don't want to do it now because I'm tired of studying. So let me get away from this recession, sad reality, right? And at that time, luckily, the Korean government was providing scholarships for native English-speaking Korean Americans, Korean Australians, like Koreans all over the world to come back to Korea, send us to the countryside where none of the younger Koreans want to go to teach English. So I hopped on that opportunity just because I didn't want to study any longer, right? I wanted to just take a break. And so I taught English out there for about a year. And like the remote countryside where I didn't have any friends. My friends were my students, which is really sad and lonely, but I wasn't just ready to face recession and like the very tough job market, right? And what Korea gave me was an opportunity, and whenever opportunity opens up, I never shy away from taking those opportunities. So I just followed my heart, went there, and coming back, it was tough. The job market got a little better. And so I was able to take up an internship at a law firm to really test out whether law was for me. I was taking classes in LSATs, but it just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel like it was me. And I felt kind of lost again, right? So I had to ask myself again and again, what is it that you want to do? I just didn't want to pursue just anything for the money, for recognition, anything like that. I just wanted to follow my heart, be true to who I am, and that started a journey into dabbling in multiple industries, right? And when you're constantly changing industries, you need to repackage yourself and kind of like sell yourself, right? So as Melvin shared earlier, I was in, so initially I was in teaching, um, a law firm. I was at a media company. I worked for an art fair, so getting art galleries from abroad to come to China to exhibit and sell art. And then I had to, once that like startup-ish company went under, I decided to, ask myself again, Alice, you've dabbled in multiple industries. What do you really want to do? And the theme that kept on appearing was teaching and traveling. So that's when I decided to go back to school for international education development. And again, when I applied, I needed to think about my branding and package myself in a way to really let the school know why I'm worthy of being accepted to that university, right? And so as I hopped around different industries, it just became a habit for me to always assess what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what value can I bring into this new industry that I'm going into. And so it just became a habit. So career branding became something that I really got good at and just started helping my friends do. And yeah, happy to be pursuing that still now at Flatiron School.
Yeah, you seem to have such like a robust just set of experiences that really lend to being able to provide that type of expertise for others. So what, especially since a lot of the people on the call tonight range from either they're exploring the possibilities of joining a boot camp, they might be in one, they might be self-taught, just learning the skills themselves. What should they be keeping in mind as they're acquiring the skill set and they're really like towards the beginning of their journey?
So how many of us are interested in software engineering? Can you just raise your hand? Okay, data science.
You can also comment in the chat as well if you're interested.
Yeah, so data science, we have some data science people. UX, UI, cybersecurity.
Software.
Okay, software engineering, IT management. Okay, cool. Sorry, Melvin, what was your question?
Basically, like, what would you advise them as they're kind of like embarking on this like journey themselves and learning? Yeah.
Right. I think it's always important to keep in mind as you're learning. Once you develop the skill, once you pick up the skill, where do you want to invest your skill in? Which industries, right? As you're picking up software engineering skills, UX UI skills, you always need to keep in mind, like, which industry do you want to enter, right? What kind of companies do you want to work for? Is it going to be large Fortune 500 companies? Is it going to be a startup? Is it going to be a mission-driven company? Is it going to be a company? I don't know. It really depends, like, on what you want to do, and those who have clarity on what kind of company that they want to work for, what kind of work they want to do, what kind of people they want to surround themselves with, they're the fastest at also landing jobs, because once they know where they want to go, next step is like they know who to ask for advice, right? So I know that in the forum, I believe on the webpage, there was a question about networking, right? Networking is incredibly intimidating if you construe it as making friends, like trying to make friends or connections with strangers and asking for jobs, right? How many of us like networking? For the show of hands. Oh wow, we have a few that like networking. Okay. But networking to the average person, even myself, it's very intimidating, right? But the thing is, if you think of networking as an opportunity to get your questions answered, and while you're connecting with that person, just sharing yourself, it becomes less of a stress. It's a less of a stressful event, right? So for instance, let's say you're studying software engineering and you're interested in the field of AI, artificial intelligence, right? If I were that person, some of the questions that I might have is, number one, how did you get into AI, right? Especially if I had a background in education and I was working in higher ed. I would be curious, like, how did you get into AI? What are the skills required to thrive in the AI field as a software engineer? What are some other questions that we could ask? Why did you choose to work for this company, right? What is your background? And so these are just natural questions that you might come up with, and you're just finding someone to answer those questions. That's it, right? And it's best to do this. So it's best to network as you're picking up a skill, right? Because if you've already graduated and you're actively looking for a job, then yes, you might come off desperate, right? It's like, hi, stranger, nice to meet you. I'm looking for a job. Like, can we talk? Versus, hey, I'm a student. I think what you're doing right now is like amazing. I think you work for an amazing company. I want to be where you are. Can we hop on a call to so that I can learn more about what you do? Right? It's two different approaches. And so, what can you do while you're studying for to pick up skills in tech is start networking and start coming up with questions and start finding people that you want to direct these questions to. You're harmless as a student. Approaching people as a student is like the easiest thing to do. And also like approaching people when you're younger than when you're older. It's easy because you have the excuse of being young, not very knowledgeable about a specific field, right? So you're approaching someone as a learner and everyone wants to teach and share, okay?
Yeah, and being young also doesn't even have to be like age restricted. Also, it's you're just very fresh to the industry. You just want to learn, right? So that's actually a really powerful thing that you all can start doing like today, right? You don't want to begin digging your well when you're thirsty, right? You want to make sure that you're planting the seeds well ahead of time, and making these connections. And so that's a really awesome like way to just get started. So I appreciate that, Alice. It's really great advice.
Yeah.
So for the people that are on this call right now, do we have any questions at the moment for Alice? We can call on you individually. We can pull up some questions from the chat as well. And then we also have a bunch of questions that were asked beforehand as well. If not, Alice, we can probably like delve deeper into certain aspects or topics that you wanted to cover as well.
Sure. To continue the earlier question, I think one thing, this question I also saw in the website was, how do bootcamp graduates differentiate themselves from more senior or experienced talent? It's eagerness and enthusiasm, right? You're new, you're fresh, you just developed a skill, you're ready to dive into the world of tech. And when more experienced people get to talk to you, they can really feel your energy and they love it because they've been in this field for like years, right? And it's refreshing for them to engage with new, eager, enthusiastic talent. So straight out of boot camp, just get into your job search, start networking with people with like enthusiasm and energy and love for coding, love for UX UI, love for cybersecurity, and etc.
Yeah, that is a huge tip that you kind of at the beginning towards like when you're learning things and you really don't know much maybe about the industry or about the field itself.
What are the
Wait, sorry, what was that? Okay. But essentially what I was getting at was it's super important to like come at it with all of this energy, right? All of this excitement. They've been in the field for however long, right? Maybe, on the day to day, you kind of forget the initial spark that you had. And when people can see that and you reflect that and you're able to emit that type of energy and you're kind of like this this just ball of wondrous, joyful energy that's like super excited to be a part of the team and wants to, you know, learn and grow. Like that's really awesome to be around. And maybe you don't have technical expertise yet, but you're always like continuously learning and growing and getting that. And by just being a person that people want to be around, that's like a really, you know, powerful thing in and of itself. So great advice.
Yeah, I think we have some questions coming in, right?
Yeah. So it says.
So what are? Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so I'll start with Monique's question. What are the different jobs in software engineering? So software engineering is very, I guess, wide and vast. Let me just share examples of job titles associated with software engineering. So there's front-end web developer, there's back-end web developer, full stack web developer. These are some titles associated with software engineering. And then there's also tech adjacent roles. So let me just talk about Flatiron graduates. So students that have taken software engineering courses, they've gone for jobs with these titles that I just shared with you, but they also go for tech adjacent roles, right? Who are the people that work with software engineers? We have some people go into, let's see, like product management. That's very common, but it really depends on what kind of background you have. Yeah, so that might have answered your question. Next from Joseph, we have can getting some bootcamp training help someone who is not new to the IT space? Definitely. So right now in the professional development space, the term upskill is very sexy. It's pretty much upgrading your skill, right? So you can be in the IT industry, but let's say you're going into Flatiron School to learn a new language, right? That you didn't have before. So you're upskilling and becoming a stronger, more relevant software engineer. So there you go.
And Karen had a really great one as well. So it seems like her question is more about like when you were experiencing your transitions and branching out to different industries. How do you approach that and not have to start from the bottom each time? Or is it just like a natural part of the process where you're just starting from scratch all over, like entry level? Is it, how does that look? Or are you kind of leveraging your existing knowledge and just transferring those skills like over?
I think it's definitely the latter, right? Because the positions I've held was wide and vast. So there was, I've done marketing, I've done business development, just different functions within a company. So the only thing that really changes is the product or the service, right? But what I'm doing is essentially the same. So I would leverage past experiences and then try to go for not so junior roles. Yeah. So I would make my own judgment. Like I would look at the job description and I would ask myself, do I have most of these skills? And if I do, then I can go for a higher position. It really depends.
All right. So we also have another question from, it looks like Angela's actually asking a question about certifications and I guess their importance. Are certifications important? Like, is it advisable to, I guess, invest in particular certifications, or what is really valued in the job market?
So I used to be one of those people that did not believe in certifications. I thought it was just ways for companies to make money. And so I really didn't like it. But once a field becomes popular, and you have more competition and the majority of the people do have certifications, that's when you kind of need to think about getting certified, because otherwise people won't look at your resume, right? Like unless you have it. So on the side, on top of my full-time job, on the side, I'm also trying to become a executive coach. So it's a coach for leaders and companies. And I thought through like coaching friends, I could just call myself an executive coach. But I realized that if I do want to, um, find more clients, then I need to have that basic certification that every other executive coach has, right? So I
Right.
think you can wing it without it initially, but over time, you'll probably feel the need for it. So best to just go for it. And then while along the process of getting that certification, you're probably taking a course, doing some sort of workshop, right? So I think when I'm going for a certification, what I'm really paying for is the network. I'm in a classroom with a group of people with similar interests and similar goals. And that group of people, I couldn't have found myself, right? So I recently went for a certification course for executive coaching, and that cohort of 20 to 25 people, I love them. They're like such great resources because we all have the same goals and dreams. And so these boot camps, I would strongly recommend them if if you're not sure whether you want to do it or not. Studying alone, doing this alone versus doing it with the group of friends, there's a huge difference there. So I would definitely recommend it. And once you become a software engineer, UI/UX designer, you'll realize that it's worth it because I'm not sure where everyone is pay level, but they pay pretty well, I think. Yes.
Yeah, and I think Brooke also would like to know what kind of executive like coaching certification, like where did you get that at?
Just what was the name of the school or the training place?
Yeah, so I opted for brain-based coaching with the Neuro Leadership Institute. So that's the name of the company, Neuro Leadership Institute. They do brain-based coaching, training, and they actually have training all over the world. And they're headquartered in New York. So temporarily I'm in Los Angeles to kind of I ran away from COVID, but back in New York, that's where the NLI HQ is. But I chose not to go to the HQ workshop, but rather I went to the one in London because why? Who can explain why? Who might guess why? Louise? I see your hand up.
For networking.
That's right, because I'm living in New York. I could always make friends with executive coaches in New York. However, executive coaches out in Europe, no, that'll be very challenging. So I took that course out in London. It was a 3-day workshop, and the rest 4 or 5 months, it's via Zoom calls. So I've the past 3 months, I've made friends from Switzerland, Egypt, London, Germany, Luxembourg. So it's been amazing. I pay for the network and the education.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Just like, sorry, I'm like tripping over my words here, but it's really like exemplary of like what you're doing. You're like taking the like actions of like putting yourself like out there and like getting to meet all of these other people because you know that you can create craft a network in New York, and then you're making sure that you're spreading seeds in London and in Europe. So that's really awesome, and you can actually do the same in various disciplines as well, right? If you're taking a course, for example, it looked like I think Melissa Newman was wondering. So if like being a product owner or a product manager is like the end goal, is like the software engineering boot camp relevant? Like, is that a different training path? And I guess how this ties in a little bit is that in general with like product management or like building products, you'll have little like toolkits to be able to essentially like be an advocate in your team, but you're essentially like you can craft different seeds in like all of these different disciplines and connect with all of these different sorts of people. So you'll have to speak the language of a designer or a coder, Alice, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that. If someone's goal is to be like a product owner or a product manager, how do boot camps fit in sort of that regard?
Yeah, so product managers, I think if you do go through a boot camp, you can understand. I think the hardest part about being a product manager is being able to communicate with different stakeholders, right? You have to be able to understand customer needs. So that means you have very like high empathy. You also need to be able to work very closely with the CEO that's making business decisions. So you need a little bit of business savviness, and you also need to be able to work with engineers. And engineers have a specific way of thinking, a certain way of thinking, right? And what makes engineers good, like differentiate good engineers from like not so great engineers, are engineers who are able to take on different perspectives, and meaning they're able to understand the needs of the user as they're building the product, right? Because in startup, there's a lot of engineers where they think they know what the user needs, and they spend a lot of time building something, and they realize the users aren't really adopting that product, right? So to go back to the question, as a product manager, if you have that bootcamp training and you're able to understand how an engineer thinks, then that helps you better communicate with engineers and also understand how the engineers think about like when they're actually building things, right? So it will only help you. And because there's a lot of PMs right now with an engineering background, if you don't have that, you're definitely at a disadvantage. So if PM is your end goal, and you don't have engineering background yourself, then going through like a short boot camp to just understand the basics even would be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, and so I think Louise also had a question here. And I think I want to tie this back into your ability to like craft that narrative and like find how your story resonates with the needs of the company. Do you have any books or resources people can kind of reference, or is this more of like a just try it over and over again, like practice the pitch, like try to figure that out? How would you go about getting people to practice that type of skill set?
Have you written a book?
What is that?
Written a book? You wrote your book yet? Published?
No, maybe I should, because yes, I didn't read any books to figure this out. I think because I had to hop around so many industries, I also lived in China, Korea, here. So just like moving back and forth, and I just found myself in a situation where I needed to explain why I made the decisions that I made. And yeah, during that process, I was just able to improve in doing that. So I guess number one priority is knowing yourself, right? Because once you know yourself, you'll know how to pitch yourself. So how do you figure out who you are? I don't know. Start with asking your friends, right? Like, hey, I actually asked this to my friends, right? Like, hey, when you guys think of Alice, what are a few things that like come to mind, right? Like when I'm with a group of people, am I the leader? Am I the follower? What kind of person am I like when I'm surrounded by my friends, right? Because I think family and friends know you best. So through their feedback, you just start creating like I'm a big fan of mind maps. Does everyone know here what mind maps are? Yeah, try to Google it and see what it is after this call. But basically, I would put I'll get a blank sheet of paper, write my name in the middle, and then I would create like these. Like I would branch out of that, and just like one section would be my personality, right? How people would describe me. Another area would be the things that I enjoy doing. And then another area would be like the books that I love reading. So if you really want to know who you are, I would say look where you're spending time. Like if you like books, go to your bookshelf and see what kind of books you're reading, right? So that's one way to know yourself. So essentially, I guess the answer to answer your question, it would in order to be good at branding, you just need to first figure out like who you are, and also figure out like who you are, what do you like, where do you want to go. Yeah, just knowing more about yourself. I think I just said that in a very roundabout way. I don't know.
Can I
No,
expand my question?
Go ahead.
yeah, go for it.
So my library has art books.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my BA in art, so most of my books are art, and I would like to do some kind of reading that will help me pick up the jargon for software engineering, which is right now what, or a magazine or something that you might recommend to follow that might keep me like wash my brain with the words and language that is used in this field.
I think there's tech media that you could definitely follow. I wouldn't say it's specific for software engineering, but it's pretty much news about tech. I went through an incubator called Y Combinator. So how many of us know what incubators are, like in the field of tech? Okay, so these are organizations that, oh, there we go. I think someone just shared Hacker News. But incubators are entities that provide maybe funding, mentorship, and all kinds of resources to startups, right? So Y Combinator is famous for Airbnb, Dropbox all went through Y Combinator before it became big, right? So if you go to Y Combinator, their website, they also have news articles. So I think you can sign up for newsletters. So I would just look for these tech related news websites and then sign up for their newsletters. And I would just familiarize myself with like just new technology, new companies doing cool things. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that. Louise, if you didn't know, actually, Career Karma is backed by Y Combinator, and Ruben's
Oh, really?
always,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh, Alice, yeah,
Amazing.
I guess you're finding that out now.
Mhm.
But Ruben Harris, our CEO, actually posts tech news on our tech news discussion board all the time, so you can see the types of things that he's tweeting. Find out. I think another really great way of doing this is like immersing yourself within the industry by following people that share the things that you might find interesting within like software engineering. And so listening to podcasts, watching content on like YouTube, reading the articles, just consuming all of these different outlets that a software engineer or someone in tech would consume, then you can start to get an idea of like what certain words get used a lot, and you'll get a little bit more familiar with that type of jargon that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And Louise, if you have
Thank you.
if you have a passion for art plus tech, there's digital art. Digital art is becoming big right now. Art in the blockchain, that's fairly new as well. And so there's definitely opportunities in the intersection of art and tech.
Yeah, thanks. I
Mhm.
studied for the Arduino projects. So I wrote some code for that, but I realized that it's quite basic. Arduino is like the basic, and then it's like HTML, JavaScript, and Python, blah, 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 and then just languages on top of languages, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is your goal to, so you already have the programming skills?
No, I mean to say I've done it a little bit before,
Mm-hmm.
coding for
Mm-hmm.
Arduino, which is
Mm-hmm.
very basic,
Mm-hmm.
but my degree is a BA in studio art, so I don't have any kind of tech degree. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning to join a school. I'm still deciding on one.
Yeah, which isn't a problem. Yeah, I would just go ahead and look for companies that's in the intersection of art and tech, and look up software engineering roles there. and read through the job description, see what kind of skills they're asking for.
Yeah, that's a really good way to prime yourself to see like what direction you more or less want to head into. So Dana is actually asking a question here. Dana, did you want to unmute yourself and ask? I think this is actually a really good example that maybe Alice can help us walk through, just so that everyone kind of has an idea of like how they can go about positioning themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So my question is, I am pursuing data science, and I'm super passionate about digital marketing. And so how would you recommend, what would be the best way to position myself, coming, off the back of a boot camp and putting myself out into the market?
Mm-hmm. So boot camp in data science.
Yes.
And then you're trying to get into digital marketing, right?
Well, I've got a digital marketing sort of background experience, and to me, those two make a great marriage. But I'm trying to figure out the best way to position myself so that when I, start trying to make connections off the strength of completing the boot camp. I want to be able to, what's the best way to ensure that I'll get some bites when I put myself out there?
First of all, what will you be going for? What jobs would you be going for? It really depends on that.
Okay, that's a super good question. I don't have a super good answer.
I think.
But somewhere at the intersection of marketing and data science, and I know typically people say, data analyst. I think there's more to be done though, on the data science side of it, and so I haven't figured it out yet, honestly.
Yeah, it really just depends on the company and the jobs, right? Some might, advertise a digital marketing role, but they wouldn't require you to know any data, whereas other companies might advertise the same title, digital marketer, but require you to have a lot of data science or data background, right? So how you would position yourself really depends, again, on the company. So what I would do always would first figure out, what do I want to do? And then I tailor myself to that specific need that the company has.
Got it.
So you don't establish a brand for yourself and just stick with that. It's pretty fluid, right? You tailor it really to the job that you're going for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So it looks like we have about 20 minutes left in the event. I wanted to take like a quick little break here to pull up this little wheel of names. And so we actually had a giveaway occurring while it's happening right now. And we're actually going to go ahead and start just selecting the winners for tonight's giveaway. And I will be sharing my screen here just really shortly. So just 1 second. So we got a ton of really great questions submitted. And so for those that actually weren't aware of the giveaway that's happening right now, so on Tuesdays with Flatiron, we partnered with them, and they've so graciously decided to have these giveaways to make these events a little bit more exciting as well as engaged. So we actually ask you all to submit questions for our guests so that they have a lot of things to think about as they're preparing for their events. They're wondering what you guys are all wondering about. So thank you all for submitting these questions. We got a ton of really great ones. And so I kind of just aggregated the names of the people that were able to submit those questions and enter for a chance to win. So we're just going to select 4 people for tonight's event. And then if you all were not aware, there's always next week. So definitely make sure that you go ahead and check out for those posts announcing the giveaways. So it looks like our first winner for tonight is Ron. Ron DiGilio. Is Ron in this chat tonight? If you can unmute yourself. All right. Ron, awesome. I'm just gonna give you a quick second.
Hello,
We're
everyone.
gonna go through all four
Hey.
names really quick. We're gonna go through all 4 names really quick, and then you can introduce yourself, and then we'll get back at it. So Ron's in the building. All right, cool. So let's go on to this next one. These are really cool how they like just code this all up. Super, super nice. All right, Michael Straley. Do we have Michael in the building?
Yay, Michael.
Michael? No? Michael? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, if we find Michael is actually in this chat, we'll give him another chance to reclaim that. Okay. It looks like Giovanni. Yeah. Giovanni Galicia. Also not in the chat. Is Giovanni not in the chat as well? Oh, they're giving it up. Okay. Typically don't take too much longer. So just 1 more, 2 more. Matthew Leroux. Do we have Matthew?
Giovanni said he was here.
Hi.
Oh.
Yes, that's me.
Awesome.
He's
Sweet,
working.
Matthew. Congratulations. We're gonna go ahead and just spin this bad boy 2 more times, and then we'll be wrapping that up. Cool. So Tulio, it looks like. Tulio?
My name is not in the wheel.
Tulio. It looks like, no? All right. And then for a couple of you, Surya. Is Surya with us tonight?
I'm here.
Awesome. Okay. And then our last, but not least, gonna pull up a winner, and the lucky number 4 is Roland. Roland, are you with us
here.
tonight?
I'm here.
All right, great, cool. So I'll go ahead and unshare my screen here. And I wanted to give you guys just a quick little second I wanted to say congratulations. Like, this is awesome. Giveaways are always really fun, just in general. So that's really exciting. Can you all go ahead and like introduce yourself? I think starting off with, who was the first person?
Ron.
Right here.
Ron.
Yeah.
Ron DiGilio.
Hey,
Hi.
Ron.
Hey, guys. Thank you for the prize. Alice, Melvin, thanks for having us. I'm also a native New Yorker, but moved out to Phoenix last summer. So it seems I got out of the city just in time. But yeah, I'm new to tech and looking, to start something in maybe software engineering and cybersecurity. And my question was actually, with everything that's been going on, a lot of the sector has transitioned to working from home. And possibly when this all returns to normal, a lot of that will probably stay in place. So what can you do to kind of just, I guess, keep organized and be more desirable, in job interviews? A lot of that will now be taking place through Zoom and kind of, the things you have to keep in mind regarding that, now work from home environments.
Mm-hmm. Just be a savvy work from homer.
Yeah.
So what that means is that just familiarizing yourself with all the technology available to be extremely effective, even if you're not in the office, right? I think within tech is a world that really values efficiency, right? Efficiency. And so just trying to train yourself to be more efficient. So for instance, like I'm kind of a slave to my Google Calendar, right?
Okay.
If I have everything on my Google Calendar, I don't need to think about what's coming next. It's all there. So I thought this was like a given for everyone, but I realized that this wasn't. So I am training my colleagues and some of the folks that I coach on really leveraging Google Calendar. And what else is there? Knowing how to use Zoom very well now that everyone's using Zoom, right? We still have meetings where people forget to turn off their mics, so picking up these like video call etiquettes. What else would there be? So yeah, some other skills that are helpful is just being efficient in your communication. Even so, a lot of companies are now using Slack, right? So Slack has a ton of features. Sometimes with all the emojis and what do you call them? Is it GIFs or Jiffies? I'm kind of old school, so I don't really.
I'd say GIF. I'd
GIF,
say
yeah.
GIF.
So some people really love using GIFs, but for someone like me, it's funny at times, but if there's an excess of it, it annoys me because I have to scroll up and down, right? So Slack etiquette, email etiquette, just trying to communicate in the most efficient manner. I think that's like priority. So learning how to use those tools to be able to communicate clearly and effectively, I think is really important during this time where we're working remotely.
Great. Thanks so much, Alice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And congrats again, Ron. We'll go ahead and
Thank you.
email you after the event. Matthew LaRoe, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself to the community? Just let us know who you are, like how long you've been on Career Karma, and what your goals currently are.
Oh, sure. Let's see. It's hard to hear. I taught English for 13 years and started in South Korea. Maybe after 7 years, came back to America and lived in the DC area. And most of my clients eventually became adults, and they were scientists or engineers. So not having that as my own background, observing them and getting to know them personally, I became really interested in what they did. And since some of them were coding, eventually I was like, wow, that's another language to learn. That's at least what they were doing. There's like R and Python. I haven't studied those, but I ended up doing JavaScript and Java. And I finished the camps. And my main concern now is coming up with a portfolio that's attractive to the government, because I'm interested in a government job. And I've also been doing leak code problems every day because I'm a little concerned about the technical interview. So that's where I'm at right now is I've done the camps, but I need to do the algorithm and data structure problems, as well as have a decent portfolio.
Cool. Yeah, if you're looking for government jobs, I think there's a lot of volunteering opportunities related to tackling COVID-19. And I would Google those. I think the hosts, the sponsors are like, government entities. So you could study those, algorithms and whatnot, but also spend some time volunteering your skills and building your network that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
And also, one of the students that I placed last week, he also taught in South Korea for 5 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
then he did software engineering at Flatiron. And after, it took a while, but I think at day 180-ish, he finally landed a job.
Awesome.
Yay. Yeah.
Sweet. Surya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Surya. I live in Indiana. I have a front end certificate and working on a back end, and just sort of was wondering, and I've been on Career Karma since September of last year. So I was wondering, what's the one thing that you learned at Flatiron that still resonates with you today?
As a student, because I was never a student, I advise students.
Like if you learned anything from your colleagues or students that you've come across, like what's the one thing that stands out that you?
the importance of the importance of being the importance of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think right now, given the current climate, like nothing's predictable, right? And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Flatiron School is also part of WeWork, and WeWork's been in the news a lot lately, and so it's been sort of a roller coaster ride in a way. But I think the future, nothing's certain, nothing's predictable. So learning to become comfortable with being uncomfortable has been incredibly helpful. Yeah, so that's something that I would recommend to everyone. Like, when you're uncomfortable, that means you're learning and you're growing, right? Initially, it feels uncomfortable, but eventually you're gonna get comfortable. And when that transition takes place, that means you're a stronger person. And so I always run towards my fears. Okay, I lie, not always, but like I try to. And I always try to opt for experiences that will make me feel a bit uncomfortable. Yes.
Awesome. And then I think it was Roland who was last. Roland, do you want to introduce yourself to the community?
Hi, I'm Roland, and I'm currently in Los Angeles. I just signed up for a data science boot camp last night, so I'm about to start probably tomorrow. I guess the reason why I'm here and my biggest question is regarding networking. I'm naturally introverted. I mean, I always push myself to network and talk to people because I think that's important. But it's also, I guess that's one of the things that's probably, other than actually learning the course, being able to network and talk to people and want to go to these events, but naturally I kind of don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a I'm sure you've worked with introverts. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you kind of help people like that, or like me, that kind of going to these events or reaching out to people and trying to get them on phone calls is kind of squeamish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I kind of explained earlier for introverts, just reframing networking, right? Introverts, extroverts, we're all curious people, right? And before we make important decisions, we come up with a lot of questions. And so networking is pretty much finding people to just answer your questions, right? So I think if you play down networking and don't think of it as like, for like, okay, hold on. So think of it as an opportunity to just introduce yourself to someone that has something that you don't have. So you just want to learn, right? You could learn through, asking Google. You can learn through asking your friends, but you could also learn through asking strangers, right? And maybe not everyone's going to respond to you, but I bet like half of them will, right? If you know who to network with. And so I think networking to introverts, it sounds scary, but once you start doing it, it's not as bad as you think. People are nicer than you think. Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, thank you for asking that question, Roland. And before we sort of close things off here tonight, Alice, where can people find you?
So let me share with you my LinkedIn. So you can find me through LinkedIn, and you could always also email me at alice.shin@flatironschool.com. Shin, Shin. Otherwise, hopefully I'll be back in New York in the end of month. So if you guys are in New York, I'll be cycling around the city, or jogging around Long Island City. Yeah.
All right. So my final question to you is kind of geared towards getting everyone that's on this call not only to just listen to the words that you've been able to share with us and all the insights and the advice, but to take action.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would you think, or what would you say is the one thing that people can do this week that'll help them progress towards their goal of breaking into tech?
For those who haven't set up your LinkedIn, set up your LinkedIn and set up LinkedIn. And if you're going to become a software engineer, request a connection, send a connection request to 2 engineers. So if you want to go into UX UI, 2 UX UI designers, just reach out to 2 people. So set up your LinkedIn with the basic information and reach out to 2 people. Just start there.
I think that is super tactical, very clear cut. You all know what to do, and I would love to hear your experiences. So share them on discussions. Be sure to tag Alice. She's going to be answering a couple of questions on discussions, so she'll be able to see those as well. And it would be incredible to see that the advice that she's given you all, you're all taking it and running with it. And if you're able to create that LinkedIn with the basic information, reaching out to these engineers, or if you want to become a designer, right, reaching out to 2 designers, just finding people that have seen success in the thing that you want to do, reaching out to them, asking those questions, starting that process of building relationships and building out that network before you need it. Alice, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Everyone, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and just thank Alice for joining us tonight.
Right. Also, if you feel too pressured to reach out to 2 people, that one person can be me. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I'm taking you up on reaching out to you.
Okay, for sure.
All right. Good night, everyone. And until next time, let's break in.